Welcome, everyone. This is Dr. Josh Long with AME Podcast, my quest into looking at lifelong learning and music education. The folks who continue making music, what I call beyond the classroom, which I find very fascinating. We're supported by our business, Art and Music Emporium, serving artistic excellence. We do things such as videos like this, as you're watching right now. We also do lessons, we do repairs, as well as we do a couple performance initiatives that happen throughout the year, depending on when you're watching this. One of the ones that we're going to be doing in early July of this year, actually later July 27th, is the annual Community Band by the Sea, which is down in Wildwood, New Jersey, which I'm actually sporting the shirt today for. And we're also doing another performance initiative on August 10th called the Bethlehem Steel Company Legacy Band, which is happening at Music Fest in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Both of those events you can actually participate in as far as an audience member, or if you want to be a performer, because we have rehearsals about one day prior to our event. We also do other things such as Tuba Christmas. So check out www.artmusicemporium.com and you can see all the fun performance initiatives and things that we're doing. Speaking of that, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to our channel. We're also on Facebook at Art and Music Emporium or Joshua E. Long. Please like us and so you can see what we do. And we also have a Patreon account if you are interested in contributing. Again, all our proceeds go into helping others, again, make lifelong music in education and get out there beyond the classroom with their instruments or their voice, as I say. I'm very excited about our next guest. I've actually talked to him in the research world, more or less, and I know he's into psychology. I know he was very big in the higher education realm. And the interesting thing of the side of what we're going to look at and talk to him about was he's into making music and came back after years and actually just recently did a concert with a local orchestra. And we're excited to kind of hear about that. So please welcome Dr. Gary Skolits. Hi, Gary. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thank you.
So I thought maybe we'd kind of start off our discussion of this lifelong music, and if you don't mind, I know we'll put our research side of things, even though we'll talk about research, to the back of the of our side here. But I was interested in telling me a little bit of what your interests were with music, kind of in the beginning, if you don't mind. As far as like what got you involved and interesting? 'Cause I know you went into the world of violin and all of that too, but
hmm
I thought we'd start there if you don't mind.
I would love to. A little bit about me. My grandparents were from Budapest, Hungary. They migrated to New York by various ways. So when I was about, I guess, 7 or 8 years old, the New York City and New York Long Island school system started talking about instruments and
Mhm.
what instruments were available to learn. And there was never any doubt that someone named Skolits, whose grandparents were from Hungary, Budapest, would be playing the violin. There was never any other thought in my life. I had friends playing drums and trumpet and, basses and everything. And they always asked me, what instrument you want to play? And I said, well, I'm probably a gypsy. I got to play the violin. That's the way it is. So probably about 8 or 9,
Okay.
I started with the school, and
Okay.
we found a nice teacher who was kind of a college graduate, which in those
Mhm.
years, you had to look some to find one. An
Mhm.
excellent teacher, a wonderful human being. So I don't remember ever doing anything other than, I mean, I played baseball.
Mhm.
I studied jujitsu and karate, but I never hurt my hands. I wouldn't do that. So
Mhm.
as long as I remember, the violin was part of me. The
Mhm.
music I listened to, what I enjoy. So yeah, from the very beginning, it was violin. There was no other instrument there that even entertained my liking. Beyond that, obviously, I had a lot of other interests.
Mhm.
I was interested in government. I got a,
Mhm.
a BA in political science, an MPA. That was from Penn State.
Mhm.
And I went to work for the city of Miami, down in Miami, Florida. And while down there, I went to a bluegrass workshop. And it was
Okay.
in northern Miami, of all places. Northern Miami is where I learned to play bluegrass.
Okay.
So did that for a few years and then went on and had a few more careers till I made it in education. So from that point on, I got very busy in other things and my violin was always nearby and I
Hmm.
played it on occasion, but I didn't really study much and
Yeah.
didn't work on more advanced repertoire until I retired two
Hmm.
years ago from University of Tennessee faculty.
Very awesome. Well, cool. And one thing I want to ask really quickly, and then I want to kind of dive into how you got started again. As far as this love of the violin, do you remember, and I'm not trying to be coy here, do you remember back in the day like what fascinated you most about the instrument? If I may ask.
Yes, yeah, it's interesting. My mother loved music.
Uh-huh.
She had no musical background, um, but she would play waltzes. My
Oh.
mother just loved waltzes. So I can remember before I actually studied, I probably could hum every Strauss waltz. I mean, it just even today, I was on the drive-in and I was on the radio and listening to classical music, and the Strauss waltz came on, and I didn't even need to look at the number. I started humming. So I think that was that was it. Something about the Strauss waltzes, probably because I heard them, from the day I
Yeah.
was born.
Oh, wow.
So that really struck. Now, interestingly, that's probably my least interest in the violin today. But go figure, right?
Yeah, well, and it actually brings up something that, I'll share with you on here. I still remember it's like those days of, I'm not very big religious person, but the family side of like Christmas, for example. And I remember my grandmother would always, bring out the record of, the Christmas music, and I loved
Mhm.
it and I would hum it. And I realized that a lot of the tunes that were there were the Boston Pops.
Oh yes,
And
love the
you know what I
Boston
mean?
Pops.
And great, 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 great great music. And Arthur Fiedler, was conductor,
Oh
and that was
yes.
all recorded. And it was just amazing that, and of course, years later I went up to the Boston Pops and I had to, go to one of their Christmas shows, and it was just amazing, but
How
it's
cool is
just
that?
but it's just like what you're talking about. It's like, and as you know, I'm a band guy. So
Mhm.
I'm not don't really play too much in orchestras, but it's just really interesting how that sticks with you, and it seems like that stuck with you, those
Yes.
waltzes.
Very much. I'm surprised when I heard the waltz come on today, in the truck. I said, no, all right, we got the big chord change. Okay, we got this tempo. No, that tempo is too slow. Come on, pick it up, folks. And I go, yeah, that never leaves, never leaves.
Yeah, it never leaves you. Yeah, and it's something to bring up too. I mean, as you said, you stop for a little bit, but you obviously you didn't lose that love for it, so
No,
so I'll
no.
just throw that out there to you. So anyway, before we go on to kind of starting how you restarted recently and
Mhm.
had a concert for not that you haven't done, for a long time. What did you learn in bluegrass? I didn't even know that side of you, to be honest.
Oh yeah, I went to the kind of bluegrass, where the border of Miami and Fort Lauderdale
Okay.
come together. It's Ives Community Center,
Okay.
and I learned old timing. And it's really interesting because they had several people that taught bluegrass, and
Hmm.
then along with the bluegrass, you had the little bit older form, what they call old timey, which is,
Okay.
the violin kind of by itself. Think of it as square dance music,
Okay.
essentially. So I studied with a really young, well, I was 26,
Okay.
he was probably 19, but he would come up to Elkins, West Virginia each year and study at the Bluegrass Festival. So for 2 years, I just played Appalachian music that
Wow.
I had never lived in Appalachia. I had no background. I didn't listen to country music. That was not my world. I still probably don't, but I love the old folk tune. It was
Mm.
very simple, very melodic. it was very tricky as far as not so much intonation. They didn't really care about the intonation. It was rhythm. It was dance music
Got it.
essentially.
Okay.
So I did that for a couple of years, and it just kind of got in my brain,
Yeah.
and just even to this day, I will listen to an album
Mhm.
and of that old timey music, and it just it's just a source of relaxation. Now, other people will listen to it and they'll go, Gary, what in the world is that sound? And I'll say that's kind of some old time Appalachian music. We live in Appalachia, but so it's rare around here to find
Yeah.
it. I live
Wow.
at the foothills of the
Mhm.
Smokey Mountains, and I can find bluegrass people, but I probably can't find many old timey folks who just play the fiddle like they did 150 years ago and
Wow.
sounding like they were from Scotland rather than from East
Yeah.
Tennessee.
That's really neat. Yeah, and you kind of explained it a little bit to you. It's like it's the I think it's the dance element of it, right?
Yes.
And then I believe it's the melody of it that kind of sticks with you. And I mean, if I may ask, do you find yourself humming it? Do you find yourself, moving to it when you hear it? I mean, it's just
Yeah, I love I love dance, not formal. I mean, I
yeah,
just
that's fine.
physical emotion.
Yeah, sure.
It probably goes back to Strauss because Strauss waltzes were dance music.
Yep.
So there may be and one time to get such a kick out of it, I when I was at work, they had a tour of the boats that would go to
Okay.
Bahamas from
Yeah.
Miami. So I went on one of the tours, and we were going to have a meeting there.
Uh-huh.
And someone said, Gary, I heard you play a little old timey fiddle. Would you bring your fiddle on the boat? So I did. I've been playing about a year, and I sat there with other people who work for the city. There's about 200 of them, and I entertained them with 3 songs, which I didn't think they would like, and they started square dancing. Talk about an impossible gig, no camera. We didn't have iPhones
Right.
then. But that was just kind of an example of those things you'll never forget. It's that
Yeah.
musical experience that lifts you from your present moment and present surroundings kind of to a new level. It's almost impossible to describe.
Yeah, 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 and I agree with you. That's I know, and I was just going to ask you a little bit more. I know it's that side of music that I think, and I've talked with a lot of folks that on this podcast about it's you can't put words to it. It's just that it's that feeling, right, that you get from it, and it's something that's it just I don't know, it just it captivates you, right? I guess
Yes, yes. There's a concept. I think it's in philosophy. There's a
Mhm,
word, and I just can't remember the term right now. But it's a word that is often associated with religious experience.
mhm,
It's the notion that someone has an experience, and when you ask them to describe it, they simply can't because
mhm,
the words to capture the description of the feeling are not there. And that
mhm.
kind of sounds odd until you have that feeling as a musician and recognize I can't describe the way I feel.
Right, right. I
And
know.
I usually can.
Yeah, right, right. I know. Well, I use the most like, simple term of connection. It's like
Mhm.
you obviously had some form of connection with the dancing that was going on and how everybody was moved by the music that you were playing
Yes.
and how everybody was just involved with it. And I call that the magic of music, right? When it's just everybody connects. And
Yes.
it's like it's more than that. It is totally more than that, but you connect and you make that emotion together.
Right. Yes. It's that's so true. And I felt that before as a student. I would go to and I don't know whether it was all state, all region, New York
Mhm.
City area, whatever, but
Sure.
we'd get the orchestras where kids come from several schools,
Yeah.
and we rehearse for a couple days and then play. And some of that music, because they were really advanced players,
Mhm.
and we played a much higher level music than we did at our high school. Some of those times, again, same thing. I'll never forget the richness of the sounds on the performance night. It was just electric. it was over with. I didn't want to go. I just sat in my seat saying, I don't want to go. I don't want to leave.
Yeah, no, I know it's well, and not to jump into like kind of research, just how I kind of got on this whole subject of lifelong learning, and my dissertation was kind of in folks with that. It's like I find a lot of people have these, memories or have these, instances in their life where they do things, and it's so meaningful to them that they want to continue making that. It's like a drug. They want to
Yes.
have that meaningful making music again and again and again and again. And I'm one to say it all the time. It's like, this past weekend, it was when we had the heat of 95 with the humidity out of control, and there I am marching a parade twice.
God
you
bless
know
you. That's amazing.
and it's like, why am I doing this? And it's like, it's just because I love to make music,
Yes.
So it's like, and it's that side that I think it's like we want to continue making that, and it's like you seem to have these instances in your life that you still remember today that are so meaningful to you, in the
Yes,
music
and
world.
these instances are 50 years old.
Yeah.
That's the important thing to think about. The one in high school when we played in the regionals,
Hmm.
um, that's almost 60 years.
Wow.
If you
Yeah.
think about it, and
Yeah.
it's like, and it's funny. This is so funny. They made a record of one of those things, one of
Uh-huh.
those,
Hmm.
and I think it was only 1 year. And my mother bought it and saved it.
Okay.
And when
Okay.
she passed away and I was going through her stuff, sure enough, there was an album of the
Jeez.
orchestra from my middle school year. My name misspelled, of course.
Yep.
Everybody puts a Z. Just life,
Yep.
Um,
Uh-huh.
but the record was intact, and I played it, and I was back there.
Yeah.
I was transported. I felt it, and
Yeah.
then plus the overhead of your mother saving the record, right?
Right.
That's another experience. So you're building experiences
Uh-huh.
upon
Yep.
experiences. So yeah, I just thought that was so wild.
I know, and I know it's at like it's the chills you probably felt. It's
Yes.
just that I know it's just so meaningful, and I know like what's coming to my mind right now, and I'll share this with you. It's like it's not. I wasn't even making music. I was in when I first started. I got into music late, and I started in ninth grade, and I was carrying the American flag with the marching band. And I remember I was on the field, like it was not, I did nothing. I mean, other than march down the front, go to the side and sit, or not sit, but stand there with the flag, right?
Mhm.
And I still remember in the music, it was Chester. And I remember the one time there's just this one spot that it would be a trumpet solo. And it, it was just that, I don't know, I can still relive it today.
Feel it.
Like I still feel it. And it's like I wasn't even making music at that point,
I can
other than I was part of
I
it.
can so
But
relate. Yes, I
it's
can so
like,
relate.
so anyway, as we move on, I was
Mhm,
interested in hearing a little bit about, and I know you retired, and I know
mhm.
you picked up your instrument again, and I know you just had
Yes.
had your concert. And I was just interested in getting a little information about what the motivation was with that, as
Oh,
far as
sure,
getting back into it. Yeah.
sure. I always had the desire to get back into it. I had several careers from Miami. I went to TVA. I
Hmm.
went to corporate world, the Fortune 500, and then to a community college, and then a university. So my career track was kind of meandering
Okay.
along, and I was very busy. I was very active. I traveled a lot. The University of Tennessee, I
Hmm.
traveled for about 10 years, 3 out of 5 days, anywhere across the country. So
Okay.
music, other than listening, took a back, kind of took
Hmm.
a back seat. So when I retired, I said, well, what the hell do retired people do? I don't want to retire. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
old enough, and unfortunately, financially, with the university,
Sure.
to be able to retire. So what do I do?
Right.
Um, so I said, well, one thing I know I can do is pick back up on the bluegrass,
Okay.
right? So that was
Hmm.
my start.
Okay.
This is almost embarrassing to say, but I played a little and I
Hmm.
recorded myself and I listened and
Hmm.
I said, Gary, That's not good.
Hmm.
Let's be honest here, Gary.
Yeah.
That is really not good. And I'm not picking on myself. I'm
Sure.
talking about violin, tone quality, intonation,
Hmm.
slides and shifts. It was weak. And I said, well, I haven't been practicing. I haven't been doing the
Yep.
scales, et cetera, et cetera. So,
Hmm.
okay. Well, the only way I can build up is I got to go back to classical because that's kind of my world. So
Right.
I worked on that for about 6 months. And then I wrote a note to the Maryville College. Maryville
Okay.
College is in the town I live,
Uh-huh.
essentially in Maryville. And
Hmm.
I said, I know you guys got an orchestra. And I think years ago you would let community members play along.
Uh-huh.
Would it be possible for me to come and audition? And I got a letter back saying, hey, we're a community orchestra. If you can play the
Hmm.
violin, we don't even need
Yeah.
you to audition. Just come on.
Wow, that's nice.
So I
Yeah.
walked down there with my little violin, and these people have been playing together for years.
Okay. Hmm.
There's probably 10 first violins, 10 second violins, and then of course the full complement,
Sure.
including the winds and the
Yeah.
woodwinds and the brass, etc.
Nice.
And they gave me the music, and I came home and I looked at it and I said, I'm dead. I'm out.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure I could do this. If
Hmm.
I couldn't play bluegrass, what makes me think this Fidelio overture is gonna work?
Right.
So I literally started studying hours a day. I
Okay.
broke it. I got very scientific. You know, I broke it into 8 measures. What's happening in the
Hmm.
8 measures? What's the key? What's the chords? How are we
Hmm.
changing?
Right.
And struggled my way through. But after 2 or 3 months,
Okay.
I could get the second violin part, which is easier than the first violin part. So
Good.
um, I was happy in
Sure.
that I was able. And then we had a concert, which I hadn't been on a stage in the fiddle since high school, essentially.
Uh-huh.
So that was a different feeling. And we have a beautiful stage here. We have a beautiful location, etc. And so before I knew it, I was playing, and there was an audience, and we were doing wonderful stuff. We were doing arias from the opera, and they had the
Hmm.
community chorus join us. And our concert was about an hour and 15 minutes, and it got to be electric. It just
Okay.
got to be one of those experiences that kind of brought me back. And I go, this is why I do this.
Hmm.
This is
Yeah.
a lifelong trajectory where I'm kind of circling back. I hate that terminology. So
Yeah.
I'm circle back, but I'm
Yeah.
circling back. I'm essentially circling back. However, I recognized that I still needed work. So I found a online teacher
Okay. Oh, nice.
in Asheville, North Carolina,
Okay.
who
Hmm.
trained in the USSR, Russian,
Okay. Okay.
and been teaching here for a number of years.
Okay.
And he is let's just say, I hit the jackpot. He
Yeah.
is exceptionally gifted as a teacher and
Right.
as a player, and I am back to basics. I'm,
Okay.
I'm working on one position scales, which if you're a
Yeah.
violinist,
Yep.
all
Hmm.
right, that's the first week. What do you do the second week? But we kind of share a thing. We don't go on until it's perfect,
Nice.
until we know it, until we own it. And once we own it, so if it takes us whatever, and I go,
Hmm.
hey, I'm 71, I got time. No, I don't. But so yeah, I'm now like a violinist. My life has changed so much.
Well, that's awesome, and especially that you're going into, the more pedagogy, with a
Yes.
teacher, and kind of, I know we call them basics, but you're pushing yourself to kind of get back to that and back to, feeling those scales and making yourself, better. And I know I will say this, even with me, when I record myself, like we all listen to ourselves and we're hard on ourselves, you know?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
I'm like,
Yes.
really? I'm playing like that? Really? And if I would do that right now, even though I do play regularly, I would still be hard on myself because,
Yeah.
there's,
Well, if you are going to be a committed musician.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing I think, as far as a little bit of my interest in
Right.
education, that part of psychology is
Mm-hmm.
education.
Right.
And if you can develop the notion of excellence,
Right.
anybody can play a violin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's not the most difficult instrument in the world. At some level, anybody can play, but to play it well, to play it in tune, to play it at a level that you can compete at is rigorous. It's
Mm-hmm.
demanding. There's repetition, there's mind work, there's mind body control. You
Mm-hmm.
literally become a fully emotionally, physically engaged actor. And I attribute my study of the violin to my love of math,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
my ability to memorize things.
Mm-hmm.
Like even now, my instructor plays it and it gets in my mind, and I don't need to look at the music. It's simple, I get it.
Right.
But throughout all my careers, I've always relied on my ability to memorize things,
Okay.
to think things through, to have a standard of as to what excellence is,
Mm-hmm.
and to work to achieve it. And if it takes 2 hours or 50, I always gave it what it was.
Mm-hmm.
That started when I was 9 years old, taking lessons from the little old Italian man who
Mm-hmm.
would sing in solfeggio. And I'd look and I go, what's that all about? We didn't move on until it was right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of been my professional approach to life
Approach.
and to my
Yeah.
job. So I can't say enough about the role music has had in my professional growth. It just still there.
Yeah, definitely. And it's just to hear, I mean, I'll say it warms my heart being like a music teacher that you say that, because you learn so many powerful steps that you've transferred into other things. I mean, obviously for your professional life
Mhm.
and working in that, and you've come back to it full circle now, as we say, and you're working on your skills now again to polish your skills and getting back
Yes,
into it. And that's
yes,
great.
yeah, it's quite a special thing. And also, I always had the notion, working in orchestras years ago,
Hmm.
that organizations could learn a lot from watching orchestras and conductors
Okay.
and section heads, and the program we put together, how we break it up, how we each work on
Yeah.
our own and then bring it together and come together. So I guess that was always my model in working with people, was
Hmm.
that at some point in time our work had to mesh perfectly, right, to
Hmm.
bring this thing about. So I think I was always influenced. I always thought
Right.
in terms of, if I was a conductor, these folks would be picking it up and these would be dropping it off. And
Right.
the person in the back playing the drums better get it at the right time. There's
Right.
a bit of that, because I've always had the management focus
Hmm.
in my career. Is it's just
Right.
kind of part of it.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, and thanks for sharing that. Especially, and it's funny, and I'll just point this out, which is kudos to you. You took the time, and you're thinking about, hey, I need to practice this. I need to spend time here. I need to get a lesson here, and it's like you're doing exactly what I'm not trying to be smart here, what a professional musician does, right? You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
we can call it that,
but
where we're literally, making sure we're polishing those skills, and you're doing it so systematically, which is awesome. It's just awesome to hear. you know.
well, it's truly. I know we don't like the term self-directed learning a
Hmm.
lot,
Hmm.
um, but I am my own conductor.
Yeah.
I know I need the direct thing here. I know my listening has to strengthen, and I know,
Right.
so I'm bringing all these things together. It's kind of like the pieces of my orchestra, and I and
Exactly.
I think that's what self-directed learners have to do to be
Yep.
able to bring those things about.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and nothing wrong in saying that. I mean, it's I like talking to folks who kind of go into that realm, because you're gonna do what it takes. And you've already said that, but you're gonna do what it takes. And speaking of that, I wanted to just ask a little quickly. I know you've kind of chopped this up, but how does it feel to, like, I guess, get back into it? Like, how did it feel like, for example, to, and I know you were very real with yourself when you heard yourself, when you recorded yourself, but knowing now that you have a concert under your belt, okay, you went out and had that concert. I mean,
Mhm.
how does it feel as far as your growth and mindset, going and doing that performance again? I mean, and taking the steps you need right now to kind of more polish your skills, if you could expand a little bit on that.
Sure. I got to be honest with you. I'm not a nervous person in general.
Okay. Hmm.
I really don't. I get frustrated, but I don't get nervous.
Okay.
I was
Mhm.
nervous for the first concert.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was weird. I was thinking, oh man, I'm uptight. I'm bouncing around and jittering. So I think that was kind of something that was really important for me to
Okay.
do. Because I thought, hey Gary, you're retired. You could do what you want. You could play golf. You could do this. You could
Mhm.
do that. You can go fishing in the Smokies and get chased by a bear. You can have all these wonderful things. Um, but working in an orchestra is a time commitment,
Mhm.
practicing and
Sure.
meeting with the people and being there. But once I had that first concert out of the way, it was like validation.
Okay.
It was
Mhm.
almost like instant validation that, yeah, this is what you need to be doing, and
Mhm.
this is why you do it.
Yeah. Wow. Very well said. I mean, validation. I know it's like, and I hope you. That's what I was asking. Is I hope you felt, like, and this is what I always say about music. We can never learn everything about music. There's always something to
For
work on.
That's for sure. Very much so.
For everybody, but it's nice that you felt that. And after you did your concert, if I may ask, like, for the first time being on stage and having those jitters,
Mhm.
did you feel, not to be blunt here, but did you feel accomplished?
Oh
As far
yeah.
as, okay.
Oh yeah, before the concert started, when the conductor
Mhm.
came out, I owned it. I still probably didn't play greatly, but
Mhm.
yeah, I felt like I had arrived at some point,
Yeah.
and that the rewards for the hard work, because I did work hard on it,
Mhm.
were coming through. So yeah, I was just I was elated. Yeah, it's very much a source of strength. And now when I listen every night, I listen.
Mhm.
I got a book of the 200 pieces for solo violin that every person should know. I mean, no one reads a book like that other than me, and I'm about 100 into them. So every night, sometimes I miss. I say, okay, tonight we're gonna do a Sarasate, or tonight we're gonna do a Corelli trio or something. And after the concert, when I'm listening, I can just see the people and I could see
Yeah.
them. Doesn't matter when the album was produced. So it just brought me into
Mhm.
the magic. It's like it brought me into a movie.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
literally could hear it, and I hear this, and okay, I can see where they're standing. It just kind of
Yeah.
puts the colors of the music kind of become very vivid over time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
That's amazing. And it's great how you described it too, just like, kind of being involved with it and being in that kind of movie atmosphere, watch, feeling like you're there with, this recorded. And that's, I think that's whether or not this is your experiences that you're getting back to, but I feel like you're engaged again, and connecting
very, very,
again,
very, very.
those words, right? Those easy words are not, it doesn't answer everything, but
Well, I did leave one piece out I want to share with you, and I
okay.
just thought of that.
Okay.
When I just before I retired,
Hmm.
like that month, I joined my son in Italy. My
Okay.
son travels back and forth for
Yeah.
his scholarly work, and we went to Rome, and I got COVID.
Okay. Mhm.
So 5 days in Rome while he's doing his thing. He's been there many times, and he's
Yeah.
doing the Sistine Chapel and
Mhm.
this and that. I was sick as a dog.
Okay.
And as we're leaving Rome, I started to feel better. We went up to Cremona. I don't know if you
Okay.
ever heard of the Italian town of Cremona.
Yeah, I have him. Mhm.
Yeah, it is a beautiful 15th century town. There's no other way to describe it. The
Mhm.
reason why we're going there is I said, if we're going to Italy, I have to go to Mecca. And
Mhm.
for the violinist, that's Cremona, because
Mhm.
that's where Stradivari
Yeah.
perfected the violin.
Uh-huh.
Well, I made an appointment at the Stradivarius school, and we got there, and I was feeling better. And we spent 5 days
Wow.
looking every square inch of the violin making world from about 1550,
Wow.
to the point where this is nerd stuff, right? We
Hmm.
went to the museum where they had the tools that the Stradivarius built his instruments with, sitting there, you know.
Hmm. Yep.
So I've always had that interest, and I've
Yeah.
always had that connection. I've
Yep.
always bought and sold violins, even though I didn't play them that much.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know, there's something physically about the violin. Right, it's a work of art. It's a sculpture.
Hmm.
Um, and then when we went to the Cremona Museum, we were the first people to go since COVID.
Hmm.
So we were like heroes, and they would give me a book. It was unfortunately in Italian. I can't read it. So I just say, if you ever want to go to a fun town, it is
It's
historically
fun. Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah, people are fun.
Well, believe it or not, through our mutual friend, as I'll say it on the podcast,
Hmm.
you probably knew who I was talking about. She was actually telling me about that and telling me how, you went there and the experience. She was so excited for me to tell me your experience that you went to hear that because you were just so thrilled, and,
Yes.
and going on. It's the other thing I wanted to say is kind of another thing she told me was. As you went to that, you also did other things throughout your life too, if I'm not mistaken, musically, like you
Yes.
were you were involved or you went to concerts or, I believe you did some things with your children,
Hmm.
those kind of things. And it's like, even though you're not necessarily connected as far as a performer, I still think you were connected, from that time
I,
through,
yeah, I was. I play guitar. I play
Mhm,
mandolin, and that kind of stems from that bluegrass
mhm.
experience.
Yep.
And it's really funny. I respect both instruments. They're both very
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah.
But it's even approaching them. I wanted to understand the chordal structure of
Yeah.
music,
Mhm.
right? They're both chordal instruments.
Yep.
So when I would learn the guitar chords, right, and the
Mhm.
1 5 2 7,
Yeah.
etc., I would listen to classical music to see if when the chord change, I could figure out what we're going to.
Wow.
Even learning them was another vehicle. But there's a whole structure out there
Mhm.
of violinists because we play a single note. We
Yep.
don't know the chords.
Right.
Uh, so even when I studied those, I said, okay, now let's talk about this Beethoven guy again.
It's like it's such a thing. As I'm here listening to you, it's like your oral skills. You're just building your oral skills, as we call it in the music world, right? It's like
Yes,
I
yes.
want to feel where that chord goes and figure out what that chord is, and that's
What is that
exactly what
chord?
that is.
Yes. Yeah, I still do that sometimes too. I'll be listening to something and I'll say, Corelli? Is that wait a minute. No, that can't be a C minor nine. No, they didn't use nine chords. Well, of course they, So I get into this world
Mhm.
and I got to go back. Was there really a minor nine? I'll get the old guitar out and say, yeah, I think it was. It's just, that's, I call that kind of the nerd part.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
but it's really the curiosity part
Yeah.
of how does
Hmm.
something that doesn't exist other in the form of sound waves
Hmm.
provide such communication skills
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
such depth and emotional skills that it's still it is still a huge mystery to me. I don't understand why we respond to music the way we do.
Yeah.
It's still
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, isn't it though? I know, and like, it seems with you, it's like you go on this like journey of what did I hear and what is this and how can I understand it? And it's still even, and not to be, frank here, but it's like you still have a little, curiosity. You might not find it totally, but then you keep pushing
For
towards
sure.
it. You know what I
Yes.
mean? You keep pushing towards it to figure it out. And it's just yeah, that's like what music does. Like I said, it's a joke. Like I don't think we're ever going to learn everything about music because it's just so powerful. It's like
It is. And people get so locked into, when I was young, my friends would listen to a lot of rock and roll.
hmm.
And I
Yep.
have no problem with rock and roll. I have no
Yeah.
problem with the blues.
Mhm.
Much of bluegrass comes from the blues, and
Yeah.
I've studied the kind of the traditions and the growth, but I never got locked into one form of music. Living in Miami, working in Miami, I heard a lot of Latin music
Yeah.
that
Okay.
had
Mhm.
street fairs and activities, and
Yeah.
I'd get invited to things and listen to a Cuban band, and it's
Yeah.
magical. It's just how they do that, how they
Yeah.
have those complex rhythms. I
Mhm.
could sit there all night and everybody's drinking and having a good old time, and I'll be saying, "How do they do that?" Because I play that one more time, a little slowly, so I can follow it. Yeah.
It's funny you say that because I just did a presentation at kind of the local town that has a kind of an adult enrichment center, that kind of thing. And we were actually
Mhm.
talking about big bands, for example. And we were just discussing like this, complex chords and improvisation and polyrhythms and all those kind of different things, because that's what makes up a lot of jazz tunes. And it's funny you say that because it's like you as an average listener, and I don't want to say it's the wrong way, but as an average listener, I feel like we hear it and we right away we go for the entertainment piece of it. And
Mhm.
sometimes when we hear something that might just not seem right, we're like, oh, it's bad, it's not right, and it's changed. And I think you kind of have that mindset where you're, what is that? You know what I mean? And
Yes.
just like that Latin group that you were listening to, they were toying around with probably different, structures of either rhythms or, chordal structures, and it makes it interesting in that way, and that's what I just told them. I said, you got to think of it that way. We're going from this formulaic, Western model, right, in the
Yep.
classical world,
Yes.
yet Beethoven did break those rules all over the place, and so did many of them. But, that's what I think we hear today. Like when we hear that, it's like, what is that? Because some people just label as a noise, that's
Yes.
noise,
Yeah.
you know.
That's true.
You know what I
That is
mean?
so
But and I
true.
think it's like with you, it's kind of fascinating. Like, what is that? That sounds kind of cool. Because like how can you
How do they do that? And could I ever do that?
Yeah, right. That's
As I think about concerts I'd been to,
hmm
and the two best I went to.
okay.
First one was Duke Ellington. I
Oh,
sat in the front row,
oh wow.
and he was 10 feet from me.
Nice.
And it was a small thing in New York, many, many years ago, Midtown. And he was on. He was older, but he was on.
Oh wow.
And then Pavarotti came to the University of Tennessee in the basketball arena, and
Wow.
he sang his heart out for a couple of hours, and you just can't beat that stuff.
Yeah.
So you never know where it'll hit.
Yeah, where to hit. Yeah, that's right. And definitely live music, just to go and
Yes.
see them and listen to them. I mean, I know we get we're how can I say it? Very, very very helpful to have everything on the internet and out there and all those kind of things. However, there's something to say being, especially when you were 10 feet away from him, when there's
Yes.
so
Yes.
many standards of Duke Ellington that, are still being played today, and his style still being, illuminated today, So
Exactly. Yeah. Just I heard Buddy Rich. I followed some big bands,
yeah.
and there was a drum battle between Buddy Rich and somebody I ended up at, which I was just phenomenal. I mean, how could a man make a drum sing?
Yeah, sing.
You
Yep.
know, it's just like this is just another world,
Yeah.
but how one can make a drum sound so
Yeah.
lyrical and just so enticing.
You're bringing up all this. I actually, again, just that presentation I did, we just talked about Buddy Rich and Gene Grupa,
Yeah,
who
yeah.
did a drum thing together. Of course, he was in Benny Goodman's, big band, and Sing Sing Sing. He's the most popular one
Mhm.
with his drumming and
Yes,
his solo.
I
So,
saw Gene Krupa too.
oh geez.
So, hey, listen, I saw Liberace twice, so
Oh.
I had
Yeah.
tickets. What was I gonna do?
Yeah, exactly. You have to go, right? So as you're where you are right now, I was just really
Mhm.
interested. What's your and if you don't mind sharing, what's your goals? Like I know you're still working, I believe, on what you call the basics and getting back to your kind of playing ability, which is amazing. And then you've done your first concert now, and you were very well, I think, humbled to go through that. So like if you if I mean what's the next steps for you, if I may ask?
No,
You
it's a,
know,
it's a good question. My first immediate goal, and I've talked to my teacher, and I said
mhm,
I don't want to learn solo pieces. I don't
okay,
envision myself as a singer. If asked to play, I will,
okay, mhm,
um, but I want to be a good orchestra player.
Okay.
I'm in the second violins now. I cannot do the first because I play on the E string and the higher notes, and
Hmm.
that requires. And then part of it is I think as you get older, the hands don't move as quick. They're not as limber. So I don't know if I will ever have that facility, but I would like to be a really good orchestra player
Okay.
in the community orchestra and support kind of the community orchestra effort. Eventually, now this is going to sound really weird,
Uh-huh.
but eventually I foresee myself developing to the point where I want to be able to. I'm just a few miles from the Smoky Mountains,
Okay. Hmm.
among the most beautiful settings in the country. And every once in a while, I've seen musicians out there playing. You got this big mountain and this stream, and they're
Yeah.
they're they're playing this and that. And years ago, I played for a wedding with a guitar player.
Okay.
Just kind of sat in and
Hmm.
did a little stuff for the wedding. So eventually, I think I would, and I don't know anything about this, but I'd like to make a music video.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, and I know nothing about videography.
Yeah.
The only recording I do is off my. I mean, I am a zero knowledge, but eventually I would like to make a music video. I'd love for it to be in the setting that I've truly come to love,
Yeah.
and I'd like it to be um, music that captures, I think,
Mhm.
the spirit of Appalachia and the Appalachian heart and
Yeah.
mind,
Yeah. Yeah.
and in a setting that does it justice. But that's so big a goal to me
Mhm.
that I'm almost I feel very funny stating it because it's like that's the top of the mountain, and I don't hike that well.
Yeah. Well, no, no, I can envision you. You could be the next, and I'm not trying to be smart here, the next YouTube star, you know?
No, yeah, I don't
You know?
think that's good. I don't think that's in the offing,
But
but
well, in all actuality, I will say this. I mean, bringing the culture that you're talking about and the tunes that aren't played as much, you would be looked at just because, definitely with that. And it's something to say with the background too, because you're adding in a whole ambiance to it. Now, like I said, I'm not trying to be smart here. I think that would be
no.
it's an awesome goal, by the way. It's just I think that would be cool, especially playing in that setting. I mean, obviously it means a lot to you. And I
Yes.
know it's probably the nature side of it, but it's like it means so much. I think that, that would be amazing.
Well, I'll call you about YouTube stuff and how to record because I know nothing.
Well, anyway, today I'll just say this, the iPhones are like the best
Yeah,
recording
exactly.
device today. It's like you don't need anything special than that. You know,
True,
I
that's what
record
I've heard.
yeah, I record my concerts. I stick them on, Facebook live stream all the time, just
Oh, wow.
with my cell phone. It's just the cell phone. I
Works.
say all the
Yeah,
time,
I've
it
heard
works.
several. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, I want to ask you really quickly, too, just
Hmm.
about the ensemble a little bit because, I know it's at a college and I know
Hmm.
it's a community orchestra, which is,
Hmm.
a lot. Those organizations do exist at other institutions. I'll say that.
Yes. Hmm.
Um, I just wanted to ask a little bit, really question about how what you realized about the ensemble itself. Is if you could talk about anything with it,
Sure.
and I guess like what I'm after is like some experiences. What you
Well,
feel when you go, that kind of thing.
yeah, no, that's a great question. Um, about a third of the orchestra are music majors at the college.
Okay. Okay. Great.
So we're dealing with undergraduate kind of,
Hmm.
age.
Yep.
And then I share my stand with a young lady who's a nurse in the
Okay.
area.
Okay.
And behind me is a 14-year-old. And
Hmm.
next to him is a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
One's homeschooled, the other's public school.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm old.
Mhm. Right.
I'm the old guy.
Right. Sure.
So it's really important to establish the fact that you have the old, the middle aged, and the young
Hmm.
together doing something. And
Okay.
I cannot think of many occurrences
Yep.
in our culture,
Hmm.
especially today. We've become so atomized and so
Correct.
this generation versus that generation sort of stuff
Hmm.
that it's one of the few times that I sat with older, younger. I mean, 14 and 17,
Yeah.
there's a young to me.
Yeah.
Um, working on the same thing and being
Yeah.
part of the same feeling and the same sense. And you could see by the way they play, they were feeling it, they were enjoying it. And when the
Wow.
violins had their big section, we we're all kind of using our bow in the same direction, and you could see the young folks getting into it. Um, that yeah, just a community
Hmm.
orchestra is something different. There's no pay, there's no money. We charge a few bucks because we got to rent the hall ourselves. You
Right.
know the
Yeah.
thing, but
Yeah.
um, just to see people who do it for the love of it
Hmm.
come together, and that's a special thing. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
just and we have we got the clarinets, we got the flutes. I mean, we've got a full orchestra,
Well, yeah.
and everybody is very dedicated, and everybody's very good, by the way.
Yeah.
We have some
Yeah.
talented folks.
Well, here's something that, the reason why I was asking you these questions,
Mhm.
and you jumped right into it. I call it, you want the big fancy intergenerational groups, right? Where you're all, in different groups. And I'll say this, I'm not trying to be fun here. I've always been the youngsters in a lot of this groups because,
Mhm.
and I'm in my 40s now, but like I would, and people were older than me and older, working adults all the way up to 90. I mean, like I have a 92-year-old gentleman coming and playing in our Bethlehem Steel Company Legacy Band. It's
That's
just,
cool.
and it's awesome. We're all working on the same music, and it's like, but what I wanted to ask you about that, and you kind of hinted at it a little bit, was I wanted to, in you being a teacher, is do you notice anything with the ability? I mean, you say everyone's really good at it, but did you ever notice like the ability of the orchestra in that setting? And let me give you a little
Mhm.
backside of what I'm looking at. I'm a true believer that I feel like the intergenerational, when we're all working together, I feel we learn faster. And that's just my opinion, because like, for example, I think you said 14-year-old or 17-year-old that's next to you compared to you. And I know you call yourself the old guy, but it's like you all like tend to feed off each other. You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
You know what I
No.
mean? And
No.
you're
Well.
working at the same goal,
Yes.
but like together you are all doing the same thing that you're feeding off each other. And I feel like in the education world, I feel like you're getting more out of it quicker than if it was just a 14-year-old orchestra or 17-year-old orchestra
It,
with, get what I'm going with
yes.
this?
Yeah. It's true. Then that happens two ways. The first way it happens is, I think, as musicians, first of all, we have an exceptional conductor. I don't know how in the world we got him.
Yeah.
He's been there for a while, but he's simply
Yeah.
simply exceptional. Um, and we as a group, the second violins,
Hmm.
we're struggling with a particular passage. We get a big runs and it has to be in tune or whatever, and they
Hmm.
stop and go, let's hear the second violins. So when it's our time to come together, we really work hard to get the
Hmm.
sameness of that sound.
Yeah.
So part of it is just kind of the professional of getting this machine
Right.
to be on the same set of gears. But another part of it, and this is the part I love, is when the 17-year-old would tap me on the shoulder and he goes, um, that's an F sharp, Gary. It's an F sharp, and your bow should be going the other way, And I go, you're right. you know, but it's almost like they're afraid to
Mm,
correct me,
yeah.
and
Right.
I love it. And I've noticed that intergenerationally, we have no problem
Mhm.
kindly correcting each other,
Right.
or saying,
Mhm.
hey, you came in a measure late, your counting's off, it's probably occurring here. And at that point in time, age, generation doesn't mean a damn thing.
Yeah. Right.
You're getting schooled. And I
Yeah.
think the young people really smile, because
Yeah.
straighten the old guy out and get him on. I just get a sense of that, but they're
Yeah.
very kind, But that, yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Right.
think it's on two level. One is working together as musicians. You're
Yeah.
trying to get that pure, consistent sound, and the other is we don't really have any problem saying, hey, you
Yeah.
know, try this. This is awful,
Yeah.
whatever. So it's at two levels, I think.
Yeah, and it's something to say about that. It's like and you said it, the age doesn't matter anymore, and it's all about it's all about you working together. And I mean, the only thing I can ever come up with how to describe it is, being in the military, for example, you're all part of that cause. You know what I mean? And that's like how I feel. That's what's happening in these groups where I feel
Mhm.
like you're all part of it. You have that discipline. You're all working hard, and there's the fun times where they're like, yeah, Gary, it's an F sharp. You know what I mean? But it's not like they're not. No one is out to hurt anybody. It's more
No.
of how we can together be more proficient. And I think it's amazing, especially what you exactly just said, where in our society, and I'm not punning anything, but like, I
Mhm.
have the experience and I know the best, so you need to follow me if you don't have the experience. And there's none of that, right?
No, no, it's that's yeah. Once when you talk about equality,
Hmm.
when you get in there, you sit down, you pick up your bow, uh, you're the same. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah.
It just is conferred to you because you're part of something that's bigger, and you're contributing, and it's really nice to be part of something that is artistically producing something that's very
Yeah.
special. That's a gift. That's a,
Yeah.
a gift of the orchestra. And I was so excited when they let me in, but I didn't have to audition. They said, "Well, if you can play, we'll let you in."
Yeah. And it just means like, again, it means so much to you, and it also to produce something that people can listen to and enjoy and be entertained. I mean, it's just there's so many levels, as you know. No,
Yes.
I'm speaking to the. So hey, as we're kind of wrapping up this podcast, and thank you for sharing so
Oh,
much. I
my
mean,
pleasure.
I appreciate it. I did have one final question that I wanted to ask you,
Mhm.
and this is I call it. I've been asking all my members that come on here, and
Mhm.
it's a deep one. So if you have to take a few seconds, but so this idea of kind of, and you've done it. You've this idea of coming back, playing an instrument again, getting involved with it, you know, you did it and you're here. But like, what about if you came across somebody who wasn't, so successful or was still on that fence post of, I played my instrument back in high school and it's been 40 years and I
Mhm.
can't do it anymore. That kind of atmosphere, and you are doing it. So I'm just interested in seeing if you wanted to share a little bit about what you would say as far as advice or to others, coming back into this, music making world.
It's a very good question. I probably would ask them about how they started with their instrument
Hmm.
and what was their best musical experience. Tell me about a musical experience you had that brought you enjoyment, and what
Okay.
was that, and how did it occur? And then I would kind of ask them, what other things in life have brought you that same feeling? And I would have to say, if you asked me that question, very few things that I've done have led to that sense of fulfillment and enjoyment. And you're never too old. Obviously, we have this all the time, people going back. So it's not age is not the issue, right?
Hmm.
It's the issue of self-expression. That some people do yoga. I've done yoga. I do tai chi. Love them both. They're both. I kind of do the meditational stuff. There's nothing that I can think of beyond music that brings that same set of peace and calm
Hmm.
and sense of accomplishment. And you can pay a lot of money and take trips everywhere and, you know, go study with the guru on top of the mountain, or you can take out your instrument, right?
Hmm.
And go back to whatever brought you there. Because one time you weren't a musician, you became a musician.
Hmm.
So something happened, and go back to that magic. And a lot of that, especially, is we don't tell people in our culture, go back to when you were young and how you felt and relive it. We
Yeah.
don't do that because you can't tell a guy who's 71, you can't go back and act like 15-year-old on the
Hmm.
stage. I'm a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
What in life can give me that same sense?
Hmm.
So that is probably the approach I would take.
Yeah, very well said. I mean, it's definitely, we can sit here for many more hours talking about this, but it's like, you're saying so much that some people, just and you did it. You jumped right in. I mean, you just jumped right in, and it's been so rewarding for you. And I think people get nervous about that sometimes because, life has happened and I just did it in school, and that was a part of my
And
life that has ended.
and we're used to being judged and supervised, right? We've had a working career, we work for somebody, and what the work life is, and you get the politics of the organization, all those things in life
Mhm.
that we carry around as overhead. So when you think of putting yourself out there
Mhm.
later on, it's like, do I really want to go and get beat up? Well, no, you're not going back to work.
Right.
You're going to the arts.
Yeah.
You're going to something that is much bigger and much more beyond,
Yeah.
work.
Yeah,
And if
definitely.
it's work, don't do it, right?
Right. Especially in the retired world, right?
You got it. You got it. Take advantage of the good fortune you have.
Yeah. And that's awesome. And kudos to you. I know I keep saying that, but very well
Thank
said.
you.
I mean,
Thank
you're
you.
you're 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 getting yourself out there and just not being afraid to do it. And you're right, all these different groups, just like I'm glad to hear in the orchestra that you're in. I mean, there's no judging, you're there I mean, you're making yourself better and look at you. You're taking lessons and you're doing all this stuff and you're pushing yourself and you're going to be just that much better the next time, for a concert. So,
Yes. Much
but
more fun.
yeah. Well, Gary, thank you so much. I mean, I appreciate, you coming on this and explaining and definitely explaining, your experiences and, telling me the thrills of playing that concert and I'm also, just ecstatic that, music has lived inside you this long that you have wanted to come back to it. I mean, it's just, like I said, it warms my heart that, you've
Oh,
used it
cool.
even though you didn't use it. I know you weren't necessarily playing when work was happening and family
Mhm.
and I think, life happens, but you didn't lose that desire. So that's just it's so great to hear.
Well, I really enjoyed it. This was fun. Hadn't thought about these things in a while, so that's always I'll have to listen to the tape to see what I said, right?
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Gary.
Be well. Thank you.